Hello, hello. Oisin from Flow-StateAlchemy here. So yeah, another video, another day 11 of a 21-day challenge that I created for myself to break down the boundaries of I was facing, and just to create a challenge to aim towards in helping me create content, share the content, and become more comfortable in the uncomfortable of doing these videos. So yeah, yesterday was about letting go and trying to feel, letting go of thoughts, letting go of the mental loop, and coming into actually feeling the energy that's causing these thoughts, and how we run from the feelings. But by going into the feelings and feeling the feelings fully, we actually release and let go. And today I wanted to talk about emotions and emotional safety and emotional communication with self, and by, creating that within self and with self, it means that we can have a deeper connection with self. But then the more we can actually communicate with others, especially when we step into the capabilities of being more vulnerable and having conversations about our emotional worlds and acknowledging we are emotional beings, and there's a full spectrum of emotions and sensations and experiences that we all have, all unique in our own right, and like emotional. For me, I didn't have emotional understanding. That was why numbing at the time seemed like was the only option, because I was unaware of what I am aware of now, and it's taken time and consistency and devotion. There are buzzwords I use a lot, and keywords, not buzzwords, keywords I use a lot. Just after losing my train of thought there. But yeah, emotional communication and understanding. And the more we take time to understand ourselves, we can communicate and develop a deeper connection with others. That takes the commitment to self. I ran from emotions and hid from emotions and turned off emotions. And we can do it in so many ways, through work, through fun and recreation, through substances, through food, through anything. Anything can be an outlet of distraction, especially in the society that we live in today, that we have everything's at a click of a finger. And learning about yourself is not a click of a finger. It's a slow, deep process of going inward and taking accountability and responsibility for yourself. But emotional safety, to cultivate that within yourself, for me, what that looks like is knowing when I feel something. And this has taken quite a long time to even come into, rather than be more self-aware and self-reflective and going, oh, actually that's what that is. I'll share the process of the overeating, which I spoke about before. A lot of that overeating was my inner child. That was how I coped as a young child, and then carried that through into adulthood. And by overeating and developing such a discomfort in my own body from eating so much, and the distraction from the taste and the flavor, and what it takes devotion to stop to have that awareness is one thing, but then to go, okay, I actually need to sit with these emotions and take time and space and create time and space to feel them. It's I talked about that inner child reparenting, and it has been a massive one for me, of creating a safe space within myself to feel and say it's okay. I allow myself to feel these. We have to have the inner communication with self to allow these emotions to surface and leave our body, through a somatic experience. And the more we take space to feel and be with these emotions, the more we become friends with ourselves and become friends with ourselves and understand our emotional world. And the more that we create that safety, that's what that safety is for me, is creating a safe space inside of myself and saying it's okay to actually feel this way, and not trying to change it and not trying to shift it or distract it. It's actually allowing them to fully surface, and sometimes breathing deep into them. That's a key scope for me, is breathing into those emotions and naming it and feeling it and creating a space of where it is. So it's a practice that has to be cultivated. It's not something you just start and it's like, oh, I know how to do this. And it is different for everyone. Why the way I do it will be unique to me, because we're all unique in our own individual way. It's about the willingness to go, I want to actually experience this. I want to pass through this. We have to remember that we have an array of emotions bottled and suppressed from big wind. An array of emotions and trauma that's locked inside of our bodies. We are one of the only mammals that, after it experiences a traumatic event, that doesn't have a mechanism of release. If a wild deer, antelope gets chased down by a tiger or a lion or whatever hunting animal or predator, goes to hunt this animal and it doesn't get caught and it doesn't get killed, it actually falls on the ground once it's in a safe environment and shakes that experience out of its body. We went through a childhood where emotions were not safe to experience because our parents didn't know how to experience them. So it's like, don't cry, oh, you're okay, rather than saying it's okay not to be okay. What are you feeling? Where are you feeling it? Talk to me of your inner world. And this can be how we navigate with our own children and with our own with kids in general, but that has to be in the lens of our own inner child. For me, first and foremost, and validating them feelings. These feelings are valid. They're there because of past experiences. They're not there for no reason, and that's why being triggered in this present day, in the present moment by somebody else, it's a mirror and a gift for you to actually go, well, what is this to me? Why am I feeling this way? And then, rather than asking these questions, not looking for answers, but just to be curious, and then allowing the space to feel, and that them questions get answered slowly, bit by bit. We have to remember how deep of an experience we've went through. And if you look at the history of the world, just take Ireland, just for example, my home country. If you look at the history, whether a lot of history I would claim to be incorrect, because it's written by the people that were in charge of the time, but no matter what, the truth is we have lived in a world like Ireland from before the Celts, the Indo-Europeans, the Celts, the Vikings, the English, the UK, whatever you want to. It was all war, and it's not to blame anyone, or it was this, or it was that. It was people fighting, and that's in us. In Ireland, for example, it's only over 100 years since there hasn't been an actual war, and then the violence in the north. You take here in Sri Lanka, there was a civil war here, after they got their freedom, and that's in us. And we have to become, my view of what I'm trying to navigate is become a spiritual warrior. And what spirituality to me isn't about the practices or the beliefs you have, it's about the willingness to take accountability and ownership for who you are as a person, and then how you treat yourself, how you treat others around you, and how you treat the world. And that takes courage. That takes real strength to take ownership and accountability for what has happened to you, and say, I'm not going to blame, I'm actually going to try move into a place of love and compassion and understanding and forgiveness. Because if we keep blaming the other, you don't transmute. We can't evolve. We stay stuck in the victim of what happened. The victim of what happened, rather than saying, I'm a sovereign being and this is my experience to create and manifest. Creating inner freedom. And freedom can only happen when you step into courage, you step into integrity. To be authentic, to be vulnerable, to speak truth. And knowing when to speak that truth through the lens of discernment. What is mine is what is theirs. To hold strong boundaries, but boundaries that are flexible to allow people come in and out. And that's the depth of going into emotional communication, of knowing thyself, knowing self. And when you meet someone and you truly feel your body is safe to speak in a vulnerable space, speak vulnerably and authentically. With that other person, you can have such a deep, profound experience. You can develop such connection with people and heal in the process and grow and learn about others and learn about yourself. We as humans need other humans to evolve. We're the mirror of the inner world. And then to actually grow together through talking about the past, not in blame, but in compassion and understanding and forgiveness. For me, I love life, and I love my life, and I wake up every morning in gratitude. I said it yesterday, it took me a long while to cultivate gratitude. And that takes, again, I will say, devotion. Whether it's easy for you to write down 3 things in the morning to why you're grateful, and 3 things in the evening, creating mindfulness practice, in the morning, whether it's to write it down, to speak it out loud, to breathe into the space of gratitude, and even for the stuff that isn't nice or we won't feel good, the negative. Because without all that pain and negativity, how can we find bliss? How can we understand what joy actually is? And then as a man, I never had this capability before, and it's been a compass of discovering and learning about sacred sexuality and understanding my body and understanding who I am through stepping away from relationships and stepping away from aiming and intending not to be that needy person. I needed to be needed to feel value. I needed a partner that needed me rather than being able to just give and be a giver. And I don't need to be needed anymore. But the other side, us men, and I know this is a paradox, we need to be needed at the same time. It's where men really truly hold our value. But if we're doing it out of a necessity to be validated and to feel adequate as a man, we develop. I so easily I developed so much resentment to the other because I was giving so much and not giving to myself. And the more I gave to myself, I learned, yeah, I am needed. I am valid. But I didn't need the other to create that validation. I can find it within myself. And the way I done it was through taking a bout of celibacy and stepping away from trying to find a life partner, trying to find a sexual partner, trying to find intimacy and connection. But really, I was just trying to find friendship and understand the feminine. And it has blown my mind to what I've learned, and I will slowly share it through this channel, that men need physical connection to feel deeply, but the feminine need emotional connection to feel deeply. And this is not right or wrong for anyone or everyone. It's just a lens of perception of what I've learned about me as a masculine, and from taking time and space to sit with women and talk to them and ask them, it's it's crazy to think a lot of women, and most women, feel unsafe in this world. And they feel unsafe because, I'm sure I made my ex-partners feel unsafe because I didn't know how to speak about my emotions. I didn't know how to create an emotional conversation or even speak what my inner world was in an authentic manner without it being an argument or being brought up to the surface through conflict. And to meet the feminine with emotional connection before you seek physical connection with them. We watch all these movies and porn, and you never see a man in any of these scenarios asking a woman what makes her feel safe, what her boundaries are, what her past experiences were, what she likes, what she doesn't like. It's just fucking rip your clothes off and you're done in fucking 3 minutes. How bullshit that is. Intimacy should be so deep and can be so deep and fun, and the experience of learning yourself through another, with another. Learning about your life force energy as a man. I find this such a humorous thing, but it's also a dark thing of the feminine have this ability to sense whether a man is physically right for producing an offspring, a child. Like, there's studies been done that a woman can sense hormonally, and that if she's lacking, she can find a man that's not lacking, so she's more selective. But the masculine, their innate primal instinct is just to plant the seed, to pass, to and we have that primal energy of wanting that sexual interaction. And the more I've learned to to cultivate it into my own life and use that life force energy, that sexual desire, where I can create so much more, find so much more love for myself. So many men are at the hands of their desires for women and activate and act from that place. I have no way of navigating it and channeling it other than projecting it. And this is not every man, this is the majority of men, to be honest and true. I look at the volume of sexual abuse that's in the world to date. And a lot of that happens in relationships. You know, was the one thing that blew my mind is the volume of women that just have sex and say yes and fake orgasm and never experience an orgasm because they've never felt safe with that man. They've never been able to go safe within themselves first and foremost, you know. And we as men have that gift to give presence and to give space and containment, not to contain her, but create a safe space for her to experience her full depth of who she truly is throughout her seasons. You gotta remember, the feminine, she's different within a moon cycle 4 times. Within that month and 13 moon cycles, she goes through, I call it the seasons. You know, spring, summer, autumn, winter. And she's different each time, and that's why she can be so confusing, man. But if you take devotion to understanding her cycle and understanding nature and yourself, you learn, you grow. We're so afraid to say, I don't know. We're so afraid to be wrong. But to say I don't know means you are willing to learn. To not be afraid of making mistakes and getting things wrong. You are willing to learn. And if you're willing to learn, you will learn. So I'm sharing this, and I will continue to share and be vulnerable and open and honest. And my aim is to reach men. Not because I'm right or wrong, but because I've gone through so much in this last 5-6 years that I just feel called to share it and work with men and learn with ye as well, you know. We as men need to come together and create safe spaces for ourselves to talk and experience and feel emotions and let go of that fucking shame and guilt behind being an emotional being. Oh, we can't express and understanding, to express authentically, we need to have discernment of not unloading or offloading an emotional belt on top of the feminine. Because they can't handle it. They don't want to be our mums. They don't want to be our mummies. They want to be the goddess that she deserves to be. And that takes us uniting and holding space for each other, for our inner children, and a space where we're not in competition, that we're actually lifting each other. Letting go of that ego. There's no such thing as, from my experience, there's no such thing as no ego. But it's finding humility and letting go of the I and coming into the we. Remembering that we are an ecosystem within an ecosystem and we need each other. So yeah, I feel that's what I have to share today. I want to express my gratitude for life, for being able to have this opportunity to be here in Sri Lanka, to be able to meet and speak and talk about the things I can talk about. I couldn't have dreamed having these conversations, or even getting in front of a camera and talking about this stuff. And to be honest, I'm only scratching the surface of what I've experienced in this last couple of months and years. So yeah, lots of love, gratitude. Oisin from Flow-StateAlchemy. Catch you tomorrow.